Good morning to everyone. I'm Dr. Sumi MS. The name of the course is Object Oriented Programming, and today's lecture topic is Constructors from Unit 1 Introduction to OOP and Java. On completion, the students will be able to explain the different types of constructors and also write a Java program to call different constructors. A constructor is a special type of method that is being used to initialize the object. Constructor is invoked at the time of object creation. Once defined, the constructor is automatically called immediately after the object is created before the new operator completes. Rules for creating constructor. The constructor must have a name that is same as that of its class name. Constructors must have no explicit return type. It can be declared either public or private. And constructors can have either no arguments, or it can have some arguments, or it can have variable arguments for the methods to be called by different objects. A constructor is always called with the new operator. The default constructor is a no argument constructor. When overloading constructors, that is defining methods with the same name but with different argument list, we can define them with different argument list either as number or as type. What happens when a constructor is called? All data fields are initialized to their default values, that is 0, false, null, etc. based on the type of data type that is being declared to that variable. All initialized fields and initialization blocks are executed in the order in which they occur in the class declaration. If the first line of the constructor is calling a second constructor, then the body of the second constructor is executed. Types of constructors. There are three main types of constructors, which are a default constructor, no argument constructor, and parameterized constructor. Default constructor. Default constructor refers to a constructor that is automatically created by the compiler in the absence of an explicit constructor. That is, if no constructor is explicitly created in a class, then the compiler will automatically create a default constructor. This default constructor will initialize the variables with default values. These default values depend on the data type that is being used for declaring those variables. That is, for integer, int variable will be initialized with 0. That is, here this default constructor is used to provide default values to the object members like 0, null, etc. depending on the data type. Java program for default constructor. Here a class student is being created. It is having two variables, id and name, where id is an integer variable and name is a string variable. Then a function display is being called to print the values id and name, and here ampersand code represents double quote space in the print. Then in the main function, objects s1 and s2 are being created for the class student, and these objects call the function display to print their respective id and name. So the default values that are being stored in the variables will be displayed. No argument constructor. Constructor without parameters is called no argument constructor. It is used to provide values to be common for all objects of the class. So if more number of objects are present, also they will be provided with similar values for their variables. In this example program, box is the class that is being created, and it has three variables with height and depth, which are of data type double. And a constructor without any arguments is being created for the class name box. It has the same name as the class name, and it prints the constructing box, and the values commonly given with the constructor are with height and depth as 10.0, as it is a double value. Following that, a function volume is being defined which returns the volume of the box. Then in the class box demo, objects are being created for the class box. There are two objects, myBox1 and myBox2 being created, and then these objects are used to call the function volume. So here both myBox1 and myBox2 were initialized by the box constructor when they were created, and since the constructor gives the same dimensions, that is 10 cross 10 cross 10, both myBox1 and myBox2 objects will have the same value, volume. Parameterized constructor. A constructor that takes parameters is known as parameterized constructor. It is used to provide different values to different objects. So while different objects are calling the same function, here different arguments are being passed and different values can be obtained. So here the same program is modified, and box is the class that is being created. It has three different variables with height and depth of data type double, and a constructor is created which passes the variables as data type and variables as arguments, and a function volume is being defined which is returning the volume of the box. And in the class box demo, myBox1 and myBox2 are the two objects that are created for the class box, and the objects are calling the function volume, and here the output is the volume of myBox1 is printed, following which the volume of myBox2 is printed, and here both the volumes of both the objects are different. This is because the constructor passes different values as arguments for both the objects. So here myBox1 is estimating a volume with 10, 20 and 15, whereas in the case of myBox2, 3, 6 and 9 are the values of the variables. Quiz questions on constructors. Give a note on the different types of constructors. Write a Java program to create a parameterized constructor to provide different values to different objects. Thank you.